3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Onyx Paradox. You're now locked in with your host, St. Chris. You know, this morning we dropped some strikes on Iran along with Israel. Now they've been retaliating, and what started with Israel and the U.S. striking Iran has now spread into Iran launching a bunch of fresh attacks across the Middle East. So, you know, it's looking kind of bleak. It's looking like World War III or something like that on the rise. So we're gonna tap into some of these reports and see where we at now and see what's left to uncover. I want to take us through this article really quick to catch us up on where we're at right now. So where things currently stand, the supreme leader has been killed. Iran has confirmed the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei or something like that after a massive U.S.-Israel attack that President Donald Trump indicated is aimed at regime change and will continue throughout the week. About the strikes hit targets across the Islamic Republic, with one killing over 100 girls at an elementary school near a military base. Unprecedented retaliation. Iran is unleashing fresh attacks after Khamenei's killing, with the surviving vowing it will stab America in the heart. Iran has already attacked U.S. military bases, Israel, and targets across the region. The conflict has damaged air hubs, rocked densely populated areas, and disrupted oil shipments. Celebration and condemnation. The contrast of celebrations and mourning highlight deep divides in Iran. Across the U.S., people took to the streets, with some celebrating and others protesting on the strikes on Iran.
Shouts of joy rang from the rooftops across Tehran when Israel first announced the supreme leader was dead. It marks an abrupt end to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's 36 years in power. As the supreme leader, he was political target number one, and his private compound in Tehran was top of the target list this morning. Reports from the capital say besieged paramilitaries are now on the streets, cracking down on celebrations. These are some of the same forces who attacked civilians back in January, when they came onto the streets to protest first against the economy and then against everything else they hate about this regime, from corruption to oppression. Thousands were killed. Those who marched then and survived will be exhilarated tonight by the news, but also afraid. They heard President Trump urging them to take over their government, but how? They have no guns and no organization. And they are up against millions of regime supporters who will fight for the regime's survival, backed by well-armed security forces.
So essentially, it sounds like Trump set them guys up for failure, right? Where it's like, unless we dive all the way into this, we can't just stop at some strikes and, you know what I'm saying, then leave them hanging. Now we got to send real troops out there. So that gives credence to his statements of some real American heroes going to have to die.
This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war, but we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission.
So the loss of life don't start tomorrow, it starts today, because Iran already dropping bombs across the Middle East. Check this out.
Including attacks on Israel, we've also seen Iran launch assaults on Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and even the United Arab Emirates, where I am now. Over the last several hours, there have been explosions and plumes of smoke in the sky as the Emirati forces are targeting incoming missiles from Iran. Already, we've seen one person killed in Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates, from shrapnel coming down from one of those interceptions. Now, already the Gulf Arab leaders are talking among themselves, and they're saying that they are willing to strike back against Iran, but it remains unclear whether they'll take that military step, particularly as the American and Israeli campaign appears to be continuing at a high tempo with airstrikes across the entirety of Iran, including those targeting its military and its leaders. What isn't known is how long this is going to last, but what is known is the fact that this conflict, which had been limited to the U.S., Iran, and Israel, has now widened to include broad swaths of the Middle East.
Oh, this right here crazy, y'all. This is a video of the rubble from the school that was near a military base that Israel and the U.S. tried to strike. Broke the building down to rubble, killed over 100 girls, an all-girls school, killed over 100 of them in there. Crazy. War crimes. Them people kids, bro. Like, regardless of anything, bro, them people kids, bro. Like, you send your kid to school, you expect them to come home, not get struck by a fucking ballistic missile. So here's some of the comments we got from Kamala. Donald Trump is dragging the United States into a war the American people do not want. Let me be clear. I'm opposed to a regime change war in Iran, and our troops are being put in harm's way for the sake of Trump's war of choice. This is a dangerous and unnecessary gamble with the American lives. It also jeopardizes stability in the region and our standing in the world. What we are witnessing is not strength. It is recklessness, dressed up as resolve. I know that the threat Iran poses, and they must never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon, but this is not the way to dismantle that threat. During the campaign, Donald Trump promised to end wars rather than start them. It was a lie. Then last year, he said, we obliterated Iran's nuclear program. That too was a lie. And let us all be clear-eyed about what comes next. The president has already said this conflict may produce American casualties. Doug and I will be praying for all of our brave servicemen and women who we know are undertaking dangerous missions with exceptional skill, discipline, and precision. Our troops deserve a commander-in-chief who approaches decisions on matters of war and peace with the same steadiness and discipline our troops show every day. Under the Constitution of the United States, the president must receive authorization from Congress to enter a war. But even if he had, that does not change the fact that this action is unwise, unjustified, and not supported by the American people. There can be no equivocation in our opposition to Donald Trump's war of choice, and Congress must use all available power to prevent him from further committing us to this conflict. Our troops, our allies, and the American people deserve nothing less. Which one you right now? Which one you right? So, like I said, the scariest thing of this all is that, when a president decides to send a country to war, he's never the one who's actually in the line of fire. So you would just hope that a president would use more diplomacy and try and work things out a different way than have to, go straight to war. But in a situation like this where there's nuclear arms involved, and from every account, even the people who kind of going against Trump, I seen Kamala Harris make some statements, some strong statements. Kamala made some tweets. But honestly, even in her tweet, she admitted that Iran's nuclear weapon program was a threat and they should have none. And so I think Trump's actions were aggressive, and I think that there may be some backlash legally and socially, because I think he went against the House and everybody else in Congress who I think they weren't really going for a war. They're kind of going against it, and he just was like, man, look, we got to do this or there's going to be problems. And now, it ain't just as simple as, we're gonna bomb one country and then that's gonna be it, because you don't know what their consequence gonna be, and so as you see, they letting off all sorts of fresh attacks to all these other places. So what does that do to the relationships that the U.S. have with those places, and what about the relationships that other countries and superpowers have with those small Middle Eastern countries, and what would this lead to? And that's where the question of World War III and things like that come into play. So we'll see how this all unfolds, man, but it's a scary situation. Like, comment, subscribe, and tell me what you think, man. You think we going into World War III? Do you think Trump's decision to strike Iran because their nuclear program was a good one? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm out.